All right, everybody, welcome to ARTiZM Season 2, Episode 7. Today we have animator, music maker, writer, Ockeroid. What's up, man?
Yo, what's up?
Not much, just hanging. It's been really kind of cloudy the past few days, and it feels like the days have just been dragging into each other lately.
Winter is here finally. Well, it
I
feels
know.
like that over here. Yeah.
I mean, in England, it's kind of always cloudy, isn't it?
Yeah, we had our day though, because I'm like from up north here as well. So then you have your moment where it's just kind of like, yeah, this is like bearable, and then it just goes that one day every year where it's like, no, it's unbearable, it's horrible.
Is it
This is
already there for
life.
you?
Yeah, no, it happened because we had the hour went back, and it was that one where you just
Ah,
literally
yeah.
walk down the street and you can hear everyone being kind of like, so cold, gonna die. So
For me, the daylight savings time, I was like that was a night I was just working really late, and I was like, fuck me, I'm gonna have to wake up in 5 hours, and I'm gonna
shit.
feel like shit. And then I look back at the clock, it's an hour early. I'm like, God exists. Everything is gonna be okay. I still ended up falling asleep way later than expected, though.
I can't stand it when it swaps here because like I always end up like having really stupid sleep patterns where I'll like work really, really late into the night and then wake up like afternoon or something like that. And I can kind of get away with that in the summer because then you can wake up and there's still some daylight. But then once the hour's gone, it's like if you're not careful, like that's it. You'll just wake up and it's dark, and then you go to sleep and it's dark, and it's just
Yeah.
you live in perpetual night, and then all you do is stare at this screen. It's just like, oh god. So that's what I always have to be really careful of when it gets to this sound round.
Like 2 years ago, I used to work fucking night shift, and it was just like I just never saw the sun, and I was just like,
Oh god.
just okay, let's
It's right
get,
for a while,
yeah.
but then yeah, it hits that point. It's like, no.
Give the listeners who may not know about you a quick kind of rundown of your channel and like what you do, and just let 'em know.
Yeah, I kind of don't know how to explain it. Yeah, so I'm Ockeroid. I do like I don't know, weird cartoons. I've been started out on Newgrounds like way back, like must be like 13, 14 years ago, starting out with like stupid stickmen or whatever like that. And I've kind of just kept going and started taking it a bit more seriously. I did a couple of cartoons like of what is it? I'm trying to think of good ones to describe it. Drawing a blank here.
Like one of the recent ones.
Yeah, so some of the recent ones I've done, I did one called Animate Me, and about a animator. I can't
Basically, a
describe that
Titanic.
one.
I'll describe it. It's a Titanic parody, where the line is "Draw me like one of your French girls," and he does a play on it. Animate me like one of your French girls. That's all I'll say. Go watch the fucking video. It's in the description. But yeah, he makes little shorts, generally like a minute or so. And what I want to know is, you took a 3-year hiatus from YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And when you came back, I want to know what your expectations were, and then how you felt when it happened. Because you're the only person I think that I've seen who's left YouTube for that long and come back to more success rather than just like a dead channel.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with it, to be honest. Yeah, I kind of didn't really know what to expect because I kind of had, a little sort of following from like Newgrounds, and I'd sort of been going at it a bit. Then my sort of like 3-year time off was because I went to go to do sort of film school here in the UK. We've got National Film and Television School. It's like this 2-year super intensive course, and went on directing animation where there's only like 8 people on, and was like, okay, I just got to dedicate my life to that for a while. Let's really learn how to be a proper animation director. And it was like ridiculously intense, and went doing some very serious films for a couple of while. And then after I'd finished that, I was just kind of like, I had all these like animations that I hadn't quite finished yet that I was just desperate to sort of like get out there. And it was like this super relief after spending this year on this grad film that's very serious and dark, to just be like, I'm just gonna, all these stupid fucking films that I've like had sort of like laying on a while, let's just finish these and chuck them all out once every 2 weeks. And
just the contrast of like the dumb little jokes versus like
yeah, dumb little jokes that you could just like, some of them as well, like one of the Eat Me one, like I did that in 3 days. days, kind of from idea to finish. And just the contrast for me of that, I've had spending like over a year on this thing. It was just so great just getting it out. And it was also kind of like my tester just to see, because I felt, I know like the whole YouTube thing swapping now. So for a while I'd planned out like, oh, instead of putting just one film out and then spending ages building the next one, then doing that, and then months later, I'd planned for quite a while of like, oh, I want to build up a couple and chuck them all out every 2 weeks or something like that, just to try and play the how the YouTube system works a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was sort of my test the waters, just to see, okay, I've got all these ready. Let's just like put them out, just do it that, and just see if it does anything. And I kind of didn't. I don't know. I don't really know what my expectations were. It was just kind of like, you know, let's just go see if this can happen. And then it kind of, if that had flopped or not really gone there, then I probably would have been like, okay, cool. I did my test. I'll still do it for fun, but go get a job, whatever like that. And then, yeah, it was just like, it kind of went well. And then kind of, I finished those ones and it kept going well. And then I finally hit my first cartoon to get over 1 million. And then I kind of looked away for a minute, and then suddenly it hit 2 million, and another one had, and I'm close to some of the big subscriber milestones. It's just like, oh shit,
about to hit 100K.
Yeah. It's like, where'd this all come from? It's like, yeah, really nice kind of thing. It's sort of like seeing different people who didn't know me from the Newgrounds days. Yeah, so I don't know what I was expecting, but very, very pleasantly surprised, and now I feel like I sort of like hopefully want to keep going a little bit, but we'll see how that goes again, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's like super rough for animators, like what you said, like you can't keep a consistent upload schedule. But some people, you know, manage, like I think David Firth is a person who's a good example who, like, you know, makes his living off of Patreon now, I believe. But
I think, yeah, because he's got such a distinctive style, and like he's got like people who no one does what he does, or like a lot of people try to do what he does, but no one does it the way he does. And
nobody can manage.
Yeah, I thought his Patreon pitch was like really good as well, because it's basically, it was such a good, you know, because he's a guy where it's like, he's not for everyone. Like I tried to show him to, like, you know, my younger brother, and he's just like, I fucking hate this. But then it's like, if you like his stuff, it's kind of like, I want to be in a world where this exists.
Man. Like, that's the only dude I really support on Patreon. Like, he's like so cool. But go ahead.
But yeah, no, I think it is tough as well, because then like I'm finding that a bit at the moment. I feel really guilty because I've started just my own sort of Patreon, and it's like I'm just so happy that it just feels really crazy that sort of like anyone wants to do a sort of like contribute. That's just really great. But then I feel really bad at the moment, because then because there's just not much to give them in terms of updates at the moment. Because, you know, I think the way I'll work, there'll be like just nothing for quite a long while, and then I'll have this crazy spree of a lot. So I'm hoping these sort of like guys, I'm thinking of doing something special to like thank those guys who've kind of held out with this slow period, and then when there's more, I'll sort of like have a couple of months of kind of lots of fun stuff. But it's hard, just working out, because just I think with it's just hard finding those models. I think that's what I think any animator has. It's like, okay, how do I find a model that actually works?
Yeah. Have you ever thought about doing some kind of like behind the scenes, or like, you know, just some kind of like insider situation just for like extra content, I guess?
I thought about that. I think I didn't really want to do that on the main channel, because it's kind of weird, because it's like
I meant more as like a Patreon only thing. Like
I've got some things like showing sort of some work in progress stuff. I think I just did a first one where I kind of like went through one of the project files. I think it's kind of weird for mine, because like I know some friends like and they've got like these amazing styles, and you just want to hear, you know, as an artist, you just want to hear them talk about how the fuck they did this amazing thing. Or like or their process, or how they this and that, or just seeing them kind of like build up all the stages. I think with Magic 60, the animation starts quite just rough and ready, and it's just kind of like, yeah, it's just there, and then but it's like, it's not like an intricate thing. There's not really like this, then this, then this. It's kind of like, oh, there was a horrible animatic sketch, and then there's kind of the final thing, and I colored it, and that's it. But I tried to have one where like just talk about kind of like the weird choices I made of like, you know, I chose through this and that, and give people a bit of a sense. It's hard though, because it's like you've got kind of like your personality that you put on your main videos, and then kind of like sometimes like that's a bit more like real life side. You just don't want it to be too boring, and just be like, yeah, then I this and that, and then I animated for 12 hours, and then I woke up the next day and I animated for 12 hours. Just like,
just like the reality is always just like so lackluster compared to
Yeah.
the
There was
I
a
think,
really
go
good. Sorry.
ahead.
No, I always remember there was. I don't remember where he said it, but I remember Happy Harry saying once about how with when you're doing like a live action film, there's there'll always be like this crazy story of something that happened on set, and I think he had one he was saying about like, oh yeah, remember when we're filming and then this homeless guy walked on set and like it was really like creepy and hard to get rid of him, and this happened and that happened. And then he was saying how, but then you just go sort of like, oh yeah, remember that time I animated? And then remember the other time I animated? I remember the next time I animated. It's just, there's no story. It's like, there's one story and that's it kind of thing. So
When I make my fucking live action videos, I'll have bloopers and I'll like collect like basically like 7 times where I like laugh. And then you watch it back and you're like, oh, this looked like it was kind of fun. Then you're just like, oh wait, but like 7 times laughing for like 5 hours of doing it just doesn't add up to it's like
here's my condensed moments of joy.
the quick fleeting moment. Okay, so after a slew of technical difficulties, we are back with Tommy Ockeroid. Yeah. So let's just get back into somewhere because it's been a while since we've been conversing about anything. So what do you feel you bring to the table as far as like YouTube videos goes that other people aren't bringing?
Ooh, that's tough.
Or where do you think your strengths lie? I guess would be a better question.
I don't know, because I think for me, like, I've never really been like super into like
Fucking shit. Are you?
Is it?
Oh
Is
no,
it
I
gone?
hear you now. Okay, I was about to fucking shoot myself in the head. Oh my god.
I thought you really hated the answer there.
No, I didn't hear it. I was like screaming.
Oh god. Yeah, am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah, no. Yeah, I've never been like super into like the technical animation side, and I feel like that's so like I've kind of ended up going sort of a lot more towards like trying to find storyboarding and like in the telling of the joke more than kind of like the sort of having like amazing animation or something like that. So like that's the thing that I feel like I spend ages on. Like I don't actually spend that long making the actual animation happen, but I spend ages like getting the just writing it and kind of like getting that polish. I'll usually spend at least the same amount of time as animating on it. So I kind of hope that, you know, they're all kind of like funny and stuff like that. And I try and make sure that they all have like a bit of a perspective on them. Like it sounds really fucking up my own arse, but you know, like I've got like, you know, a kind of a little point I'm trying to make with all of them. Well, almost all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do the same thing. It's like it won't be really heavy-handed or like even noticeable maybe to most people, but it's like just like a subtle kind of theme.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, just enough so that someone, you know, it stops someone rather than just going, oh, that's funny. It's like, that's funny. And it's like, oh, I so do that. Or like, yeah, I totally agree. Or I disagree.
Just like with the texting your crush, just like nerd love.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of themes of nerd sadness in your videos.
A lot of themes of nerd sadness in my life. So
just like if you were wondering why, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I've got plenty more of that to come up as well. There's I remember when I first did the first Nerds Can Ever Love, it was like done over a couple of days for like I think I just wanted to release something on Valentine's Day, so I did it. I was like, oh, it's about this stupid nerd. And then like it was like a year later that I was like, oh, wait a minute, I think that nerd was kind of me. And then I told my friend, they're like, yeah, that's fucking obvious. Of course it was about, I thought you knew. It looks like you. And it's like, ah, shit. So then I kind of accepted it and just did a lot about that.
You know what's funny? I'll like, it's so weird because I do the same thing. I like made a character for my previous video.
Yeah.
And I'm using the same character for this one. And my videos take like 2 weeks to make. But it's weird. Like for this one, I'm like, well, like this character, he like gets what's going on in my life right now, like in like a weird kind of fucked up way. Yeah. But I started doing this like 3 weeks ago. I was like, he knew this shit before I did. What the fuck? What's going on?
Yeah, it's your creative subconscious. It's kind of like it knows more about you than you realize you know about yourself.
It's
like
fucking weird, man. And what freaks me out is like, okay, what if this did not manifest itself through art? Like what? How else would I have fucking expressed this this terror with like.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes I'd think about that as well. Like, particularly, like, say, I've been moving on to some like darker stuff that's not out yet, and it's just kind of like this weird stuff comes out, and it's like I'm so glad like I make movies because like you can. I think I had it for like my grad film where there's this one particular bit, and I'm kind of I spent like I remember working with my writer, and we spent like a kind of like good several weeks to a month just being like, what would drive me to kill someone, and then would like. This is just a movie, right? Yeah, it's just it has to be that, otherwise it's not going to go down well.
Yeah, man, it's like super interesting. I mean, so for you with the writing and the storyboarding, I find that I don't storyboard because I do live act, but I'll like draft it in front of a camera because my videos are in front of a green screen anyway. So I'll like go back from the script to the green screen and do that a few times. Do you find that you're going back and forth writing in storyboard, or do you have a set script and then then you go to the storyboard?
I'll kind of jump around a bit. Normally I do it pretty visually, like because I think that's just
almost
the way
like
I think.
comic?
Yeah, sort of, but then it'll be like super rough the first time. I've got like a sketchbook that I just keep I never throw any pages in it, and then sometimes it start with like an image or something like that, and usually it'll be like really really rough thumbnails that you can barely tell what it is, but like still it's like that's how it works to me when it's like, oh yeah, and then this shot reveals it in that way, and that's kind of like the natural way of doing it. Because I find when I write it out, then it feels like adding another layer of like translating that again. So it's like, okay, that works in written word, and then how do I do that visually? And then it sometimes loses particularly on like really short things, it can kind of lose its things. It does really feel like translating into a new language.
It does. A lot of stuff on script does not translate at all, and it's like for me, what I find is like the most like the smartest of the jokes, like the really kind of clever wordplay. Those ones generally don't make the cut because it's generally just me like ego jerking, like, oh, I'm just such a genius for. But
I always find that so much where there's like when I'm writing like longer stuff, it will go through script and stuff like that, or like less funny stuff. But I find that's the thing I've had to stop myself recently again because it's same thing. Like the ones that work are kind of like when I'm just like, oh yeah, just bash this out or da-da-da. And then whenever I'm like, oh, I've got this clever metaphor and this amazing symbolism that's there, and then you just do it. And those are the ones that just fucking shit. Or it's just like
so deep.
Yeah, there was a nice story in there if you just got out of your fucking way and just got rid of all that shit.
Right.
Because I like that stuff, but then it's like it should come like it only works for me when it comes naturally, not when I'm like, aha, yes.
In that sense, like writing is like it's really, or just like creating art in general, it's really like an ego killing kind of thing because you have to like let go of of yourself really and just let your subconscious speak.
I think it's that, and then it's also it's kind of weird as well. There's getting that out of the way, then also just I think ego killing is an interesting way of putting it because then just that sense of you put it out there, and then if someone's just like that doesn't read at all, just getting used to kind of like, okay, all that stuff I thought was great, it's bullshit because if it's like it's not working, you've got that nice kind of like objective thing of like, okay, show it to 10 people if it's not clear. I don't know, because at the same time, sometimes I think like sometimes there's stuff and I just like, I don't care. I just find that funny. I don't care if no one else finds it funny. I think that's funny. But I think like when it's like something that's just like, oh, wait a minute, that bit just isn't making sense. Like there's that nice kind of like, okay, I was wrong. Doesn't matter how much I want that to be right. Yeah, I kind of like that though. I don't know why.
I do too.
Like
I think like the most annoying part of writing a script is making like a billion mistakes trying to find the right way to do something.
Yeah.
It's just like a huge pain in the ass, but
it's like a satisfying puzzle though, I think.
Yeah, at the end, once you've kind of got it all together, and I just love having the initial idea. I knew for you, like I've tried writing like shorter, punchier stuff. It just doesn't make sense for me. I can't do it. But do you find that like, so you have like the initial joke, and is it more just like toying with how you're going to tell it visually, or does like the initial joke change a lot as well, like the punch?
I don't know. It kind of it's kind of weird because it's kind of it kind of happens at the same time. Like I feel like sometimes, cause like that's the thing I find like with a lot of mine, like sometimes how I kind of care less about the joke and more about how the joke's told. So it's like the how it's told and the final punchline are kind of in one usually. Sometimes I'll have kind of like, okay, here's my joke, and then it's like I'm a bit more analytical. It's like we're going to build to it this way, and here's the premise, and da 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 da. But then sometimes a lot of my favorite ones, they're ones where like they end up being completely not planned. Like Animate Me is a good example where it literally was like I was animating on some other commission project, and I just thought, that's stupid. Animate me like one of your French girls. I just drew that, and I was like, well, what would happen next? It's like, oh, it should be like animated. Then what would happen next? And then you get these like weird developments. And like say, you tap in more to like your subconscious stuff, and you get stuff where
like
it's like
stream of consciousness, essentially.
Like I wouldn't have decided to do if I'd thought about it, but then end up being kind of funny. I think that happened with Nerds Can Never Love as well, where then like I added on the last couple of bits, like very last minute, just without thinking, and then they ended up being the bits that I think that makes the film work and not just be a bit more standard. So I've started rambling. I've forgotten the original question.
No, I think I go through the same thing. Like when I'm sitting with like a final like edited video, which it'll end up being like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There might be like a 30-second thing that I'm like trying, like it can't leave the video, but I'm like trying to figure out why it's not all the way there yet. And then you add something in like literally like the last stage, and it makes everything kind of click.
I find that, it's scary when that happens sometimes, because it makes it scary going to a new thing where it's like, okay, all that work, all like the hard work bit is nothing if I don't come up with the thing that kind of like makes it work in the last minute. But it's like sometimes it's there, but it is great though when it is that little like, I'll just add that, then suddenly it's...
And it's scary when like you don't need it because you're like, fuck, wait, is this one all the way there? What about that last bit? Did I do it right? I don't know.
I always find it quite interesting. Do you ever watch, Video Game Donkey?
Yeah, I've seen him.
Yeah, he's. I always find it funny with his jokes because, like, a lot of the time it sounds like, sometimes he'll kind of make a point and be kind of building up for this point, but then he'll kind of like very next moment completely undercut that. And I always find it interesting because I feel like sometimes writing comedy is kind of like that, where you're kind of building up this one thing, but then you just be like, it'd just be really funny if I undercut that. But then it's like, oh, now I've kind of changed the complete point, but. I don't know. Sometimes it's like you just got to go with like, it's funny. I don't care. But,
I want to ask you because there's one video in all your videos that I just don't get in the slightest. I think you can know what it is just based off of me saying. It's the fucking penis video. Just no idea what's going on at all.
Yeah, it's weird, that video, because then I don't think anyone likes it. But then there's like, for some reason, when like I meet people in person first, like who don't know my YouTube channel, and then they find my stuff. That one's always their favorite.
Really?
Which I don't know what it says about me or the kind of people I speak to. But like, there's been several people where it's like, that one's your favorite. Like, yeah, I love it. Just penis. Like, yeah.
Is there like an inside joke, or was that the only punchline?
No, I just found it funny. One thing that doesn't always quite like, I think some monitors don't see this, where like at the end when it's zooming out, there's like the silhouette of like 1,000 penises around him.
I did see that. And then
that's even better. It's like, no, I saw the 1,000 penis. Yeah, no.
I was just like, why? What is this? What is this? A voice in his head? I was like, what's going on? Was just actual penis army trying to kill this man? Like,
yeah, I think that's just one of the ones where it's like, I don't know, like just play with the fact that there isn't any point, kind of thing like that. For some reason, I don't know, like. The fact there isn't a point is funny, but I think that one just doesn't communicate very well at all. Yeah, I don't know why I like that one. I just do, and very few other people do.
I think there is something to nonsense, just like pure nonsense in the purest form. But
I think the problem, with that one is it's just not clear enough that that's what it's doing. Because I think that's maybe what throws people off, is they're kind of like, it seems like there's a point.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. People are like, I feel like this makes sense to somebody else, but not me.
Yeah. Is it like, am I not getting it? It's like, no, you're getting it as much as there is to get. So, yeah,
it's
maybe
almost
that's it. It's just
a joke in itself.
Yeah. Because really, it's kind of like, in another way, it's like, what is it? Like Walking the Dogs kind of got that as well, where then it's kind of at the end, you're like, well, what was the point of that? And it's just, there is no point. It's just, he was exactly what he said he was at the beginning. And like,
yeah, but those are like, that's also like a very clear punchline though, of like the absurdity of him like going up to people and saying that.
Yeah. It's got the jokes within it, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can defend penis any more than that.
So are you working on the next big batch of animations right now?
Yeah, I got a couple. I've been writing quite a lot of stuff, getting a bunch ready. There's still some from way back before school that still aren't finished that I think I didn't, those are at animatic stage, so there's some of those I want to get out. I wanted to get like a huge amount, and then just so I could be ready for ages, because but then I'm having to be like, okay, pace myself. So I think I've got about 4 or 5, and then with an update video or 2, it might turn into 6. I think the ones that I can say are there's going to be another Nerds Can Never Love. I'm quite happy with that one, actually. Then I think I've got a sequel to, I maybe don't want to tell too many people this, but I do have a sequel to the Eat Me cartoon.
Oh, nice. Is it the same piece of candy?
Sorry?
Is it the same piece of candy still alive somehow?
Well, it's kind of weird because I've actually got two sequels to it, and one is it's about the candy, and one is sort of weird where it follows the character, but he's not candy. They're kind of, you can't really describe them, but that'll be interesting to see what the hell people think of that. And I think I've got another one that kind of follows on from Ghost in the Boobs, but it's about a different series, but it's the same kind of thing of like kind of like the child and the dad, and him kind of like discovering stuff that he maybe shouldn't be watching. Might have some other animators helping with that, and then I've also got one more that's like a called Sunglasses at Night, and I did it just before school, and it's a bit longer. It's completely different. It's not funny. It's about like 4 minutes long, and I kind of did it as a challenge to myself. Like, can I do? Everything was visual, so I was like, can I do it dialogue driven and make it still good to watch, but with no jokes, kind of thing. And it's that's going to be really interesting to see what people think. 'Cause I think a lot of people, I think they're fans of just the comedy, but I've got a lot of these like non-comedy stuff as well. So then it's going to turn off a lot of people. But hopefully, the people who like it will have something fun to get into.
I think also, I mean, the one non-comedy video, I think, if I'm not wrong, is The Girl on the Roof, right?
Yeah.
And that was received fairly well, wasn't it?
Sorry?
That was received pretty well, wasn't it?
I was quite surprised how well that's received. Yeah, which is quite nice. I think it's kind of, there's some people as well where it's just a kind of, I think the only problem is then if you've seen a lot of my work, then you're kind of, that one's very sweet. So kind of like sometimes you're expecting something horrendous to happen.
Yeah.
I think I remember.
It's like the Filthy Frank, like Joji comparison that's going on right now. It's just like the dichotomy of the kind of art you produce.
I've never actually watched any Filthy Frank.
Well, okay, so he's just like an absurdist, edgy comedian, and at the same time, he makes like very sappy, like songs about love and longing that he's blowing up off of right now.
Yeah,
so just that whole thing. I feel like it gives a nice shock to show people that hey, we're not one-dimensional. We don't just because like for me, when I write, after like a solid video or two, if I don't write something that's not comedy, I start to lose my fucking mind and hate I'm like, can people write stupid for this long? Because I can't. Like, I just need to do something else.
What is it that stops that makes you not want to do it? Is it just like you get sick of it, or like
it's just frustration with the lack of variety? Because I think writing stuff that's like almost romantic in a sense like comes very natural to me. And don't get me wrong, I love writing comedy. It's challenging, but like I also just like love writing short stories. But I just don't have the time to do it as much as I'd like. So I do need to get like it's just like there's like other emotions that sort of need an outlet that just can't find it with comedy sometimes.
Yeah, because I think it's kind of nice because I think there's different ways that comedy can go into that kind of stuff. But then I think you're right. Where then sometimes I don't know. I guess some people are fine with just kind of like that's just what I like. It's funny, but then. Yeah, it's just different, like say, because you've got all these other stuff that you just want to chuck out there as well. I think I'm the same. Yeah, where then I'll find, or it's like like I said at the beginning, where it's kind of like I'll often be kind of like I'll spend a while on one thing, either if it's this real dark thing, and then after that you're like, okay, you just naturally want to do the opposite. I think, and then I think that it's kind of nice because it gives you this energy because then you're like, cool, I want to go all the way stupid, and then you're like, okay, I'm going all the way the other way. I'm getting sick of being stupid, and each
and
time
it almost even happens naturally. Like this time around, like my last video had kind of more of like a sad, desperate tone to it. And I'm using the same character for this one, which I don't want to give away too much, but this one has a much meaner, authoritative vibe. And it's like it's really like the opposite, but it's the same exact character. And it's funny, just like it's like to reference David Firth, like Salad Fingers, like. It's really funny building out characters in like opposite directions. It's
that's
like,
a good point.
I mean, especially with Salad Fingers, you never know what to expect from him. So
I was thinking about that. I was watching some the other day, and I kind of forgot how that element of it where it's like the tone will just shift, and it's like, but not
Completely.
but it's not kind of like now it's funny, now it's creepy, now it's like it's kind of always a little bit of all of them, but then sometimes it's
Yeah.
like you're kind of laughing, and then it's like, oh, I just don't like this anymore, and then it's kind of like, but I like that, I don't like it, and then it stops to kind of, but that's just stupid again. And
I just remember him sitting in the safety cupboard and crying because like and he's like talking to his fingers, and then suddenly there's like hope for the finger, and he's just like, you may make it just yet, because he finds the fucking worm and then rubs it on his eye.
Oh my god, it's just so somehow that's almost part of it, just like how horribly. I was watching it, I think it's because my sister hadn't seen a few, so I was like, oh, we've got to stick it on again. And then there was some bits I forgot, like quite early ones where it's like he's just in his house doing whatever, and then there's just this girl walking along, and then just inside his house he's just going, help, help. And it's just somehow that was like the darkest thing. There was some element of like sometimes you're just in Salzwinger's world, and it's just like, oh my god, he's this creepy fucking guy luring someone in, and somehow that just gave me
the frailty of his voice when he's like looking through that crack.
What's that?
The frailty of his voice, like how softly it comes out. It's just like I don't even know if Soundfinger's meant to kill that kid.
Oh,
He
God.
just got distracted by that hook.
Yeah.
He passed out.
Disturbing.
Just so ridiculous. Who are some of like the people just coming up animating that you kind of look up to and draw influence from? They don't even have to be anime, because you get a lot of kind of comedic influences, obviously, from different places too.
Like when I started off, or like in general, or
Just
right
in
now?
general, or even right now.
And like comedy wise, or
Yeah, I think comedy. Do you have like distinct? Well, you have a very like distinct animation style with like the blockiness and the.
I think yeah, there's a couple. I think I'm trying to. My mind's going blank now. I really like Grickle. He did this cartoon called The Hidden People, which is really creepy. And I think Max Gelati did like his own version of that with ended it with furries or something like that. But like, yeah, Grickle's got some really great stuff where he's there. It's kind of another thing where they're like really atmospheric, and then sometimes quite funny, but sometimes quite creepy. He's quite interesting as well, because he's actually like, I think he's actually like he ended up directing Box Trolls, which is the complete other end of like these weird online videos, just suddenly big blockbuster thing.
It's so funny seeing that, like just people like, you know who Alan Resnick is?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, well you should. I'll check. I'll link you like 2 different things he's done, and you'll just like look at it and be like, just what? It just doesn't make sense to me.
I kind of like that though. Sometimes it's nice, but
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought, the other one. I fucking love Don Hertzfield.
Who's that?
He did. You might have seen Rejected by him, where he did
Is that fun?
These little stick figures. They had like a load of memes came from it, like, my spoon is too big.
Oh yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, and
My
yeah,
soul
it's
is
kind
too
of
big.
yeah, it's kind of like that thing that kind of like it was kind of like the beginning of like a lot of internet humor that kind of took on that kind of humor and took it along. But I really love his stuff, and like again, he's another one where it's like he takes his other films are actually quite melancholy but funny. But I love the way he's like a guy where it's like he's just like, okay, I'm just going to do stick figures. That's it. And I'm going to do all these things that you think emotions you shouldn't be able to tell with stick figures, but I'm going to do it that way anyway. And I like that because I like a lot of those guys. Kind of similar to what like South Park does as well, where it's just like, cool, we just got this style, and like through the telling of it, and they're just committing to that. We're going to do.
We could push any kind of emotion we want.
Yeah, once you kind of commit to that, and these kind of like small things. Like, I love stuff that's like, kind of like small and just like a couple of 1 or 2 guys make it, but then it gives this really nice like personal feeling to it. Because I think that's the thing. Like, I think I love that when like animation, it's got like with live action, you've got to have multiple people in it, and animation usually you have to have a lot of people to make it. But then now you've got this great thing where it could be literally just from one guy's head, and it can be. It could just the entire thing can be from that, and it could be like way more personal, and you can get creepy shit like David Firth, or you can get weird stuff, and you just get this completely.
You can essentially get unchecked creativity if there's only one person.
Yeah, in a nice way, where it's just kind of like we just sat this guy down, and here's just a piece of inside his head, and that is
There's
cool
no need
to see.
to water it down or run it through a production whatever
yeah.
the fuck.
I think, to be honest, that's one of the things I found hardest about this. When I did the school stuff, because there's in the grad film, there's so many people involved, and then kind of used to like just being able to just
Compromise almost.
Yeah, it's compromise, and then it's also just like being able to just like mess around with stuff until it works, and then be like, okay, now I'm satisfied to show people, and then it's like really weird showing people like the half-done version of that when it's just like, particularly if you want to go someplace a bit weird with the film, like. Yeah. It's fine to show kind of like the final version of that, where it's like, here's how I want, but then the unfinished version is kind of like just horrendous kind of thing, and then it's like even worse because people are like, oh my god, where are you going to go with this?
I just remember showing like a very we didn't show like drafts when I was in film school, but like I just remember showing like a very like romantic, real sappy like film where I was like super vulnerable, and I was just like sweating behind the class.
Yeah.
It was like 11 minutes and it was dragging on, and I was like, oh my god, I can't. I don't even want to sit here.
I had a similar but slightly different one of that, where it was the first year and it was our first main project as animators, and we had to pitch our stories that we're about to do for project one to the editors, and I'd picked, so this is like the first time I hadn't even spoken to them. And like my story, I was just kind of picking up straight off where all my internet stuff was going at that point. I had this weird story about this like boy who was like looking at porn, and then it went really weird and stuff like that. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, hi, well, by the way, my name's Tommy. And it was just such this weird kind of thing. It just kind of like put it all out there kind of thing of just, I'd never had that way round of kind of like, here's this weird, really fucked up kind of unfinished like idea about porn and sex and stuff like that. And just then have, and also I'm going to have to like speak to these guys for 2 years. And stuff like that.
That's how it almost was in like that same first film production. Like before, like, we would be in the class for a couple weeks, but you didn't really get to know people that well at first.
Yeah.
And then you show a few films, and that's really how you fucking connect with people. Cause
exactly.
Like, I know who I want to talk to now. And then, but at the same time, you're showing something fucking weird, and you're just, oh god, what?
I love it though, because then it's always as well like the thing I find interesting from like most of the time when I speak to other animators, like, and you see their work and you see them as a person, it's always really interesting because there's often it seems to be either they're completely the opposite of the type of stuff they do, or they're exactly the same. And I always find that interesting. Like I always find like I always think like, what is it? One is a brilliant example of like someone we meet him. He's just like, oh no, he's just exactly like his cartoons are him, like in cartoon form. But then I can't think of a good example. I know there's quite a few people and they do like really fucked up, like terrifying stuff, and then and they're just like the nicest, sweetest, calmest guy kind of thing like that. And
I think like that's almost me. I'm a very like laid back person in real life. And like sometimes like the thing with me is like even when writing jokes, like when I write like fucked up jokes and stuff, I'm fine with them, but like I'll almost like get on myself about it. Like, is this too far? Like I like question myself a lot, but I keep the jokes because that's for me almost like the ego killing part. Like I have to get over like, I don't know, just the conception that I'll even have of myself for putting out a joke that maybe is a little bit too far in some people's eyes.
I think that's good because you always got to kind of just,
define
you do it and you show it, and then if people are really like, dude, that was, I know, because then even sometimes that's the reaction you want. But I think you've got to be careful. I think that's the thing. Is like you never want to tone yourself down unless you really are like, okay, this actually should be. I think I remember there was a useful bit when I think I had to make like some business cards quickly, and I think it was like the grad show or something. I was like, oh shit, I've not got any new business. I need to make some new business cards, and I didn't have time to like design anything new, so I just took. I think there was some image I did. I think I did it for Twitter a while back, and it was just this guy standing over another guy and like putting his like hands through this other guy's head and blood going everywhere, and then just like having this like happy but crazed smile or something like that. And I just put that and nothing else on it, and then just like on the background, like a picture of me and saying Tommy Robin, like whatever. And there was no one around. There was just like my roommate's girlfriend was there, and I had to order that night. And I just said sort of like, how's this look and this and that. And she was like, no, you got to do something else. It's a bit intense. It's a bit too much. And I was like, excellent, I'll do it. Because it was like kind of like all the work I was doing at that point was like a bit intense and too much. I was like, this perfectly sums me up, actually. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
After, like, before you left, give me like an idea of like before you left YouTube and coming back after a couple of years, like with now like kind of professional education. How did like your perspective change, even making like silly YouTube videos, or has it?
Yeah, I think it has changed because like I thought like I wondered if I was going to go to school and then I was just never going to want to come back to it. I don't know, actually. Maybe that's not true. I don't think I thought that. But like, I wondered like, there was this idea, I want to make real films and see what they're like. And, I knew I loved comedy and wanted to put them together eventually. But I think it's helped because I feel like I've got a better sense of like what else there is. Because it's like internet, there's some brilliant stuff on there. I love like the anarchy of it and like the fact it can just be kind of, here's this thing that, I'd never say to someone else, but someone made it and you can put it out there. And this wild creativity and just like the fact that people just do stuff. Like that was one of the things I found weirdest going to film schools and, talk to people and then they'd be like, oh, what did you make this for? It's like, I just made it. And like on the internet, there's this great thing about you just make it. And then I think outside that's a bit more related to schools. There's kind of, I had this project or I had this commission or da-da-da-da. But then I think through going through school, there's like the other side of like, just these kind of like films of like, that can like push stuff artistically interesting and like and just just go a little bit deeper into subjects and stuff like that. And I think the thing with a lot of online stuff is then got this kind of tendency to be a bit afraid to be insincere, and which sometimes is great, but then sometimes you can feel people kind of like self-editing themselves in like the other way. Like they won't edit themselves to be like tone themselves down, but they'll kind of edit away like, oh, I was kind of getting close to an emotion there, but I'll cut that out. And there's this this nice wealth of kind of just stuff that just different kinds of feelings that you just don't get on the internet. And
I don't think a lot of like spacey stuff makes it onto the internet. I feel like what I'm gathering from what you're saying. Like,
I think there's spacey stuff, but there's also kind of like not just like kind of trippy and artsy, but like just kind of like moving stuff as well. Like I'm trying to think of some good examples of some good shorts out there, but I can't like.
What I kind of mean is like I don't think there's a lot of YouTube videos, or just definitely not the abundance that demand patience out of the viewer. While I remember when I was looking at films, especially like really experimental stuff, like it asked quite a bit out of the viewer, and I don't think that exists as much.
I think there's that, but then I think there's plenty of good, like really great films that sort of still they're super entertaining, but they just wouldn't come out of the internet. There's a really good one. I think it's called I Am Tom Moody, and it's just this stop motion thing about this guy who's got stage fright, and I don't know. You just watch it, and it's just really moving, and just kind of like, oh wow, and it's hard to watch it and not just go, I really liked that. That moved me. And then it's like the internet side of you is like, that's lame, but then it's just like, well, no, that's like just as legitimate. But yeah, no, that's the kind of thing I found. And coming back to the internet, it's kind of nice because it's like nice to come back to that, but just knowing, look, this isn't the world. There's like a whole other side of things, and then kind of it's great to kind of see both, because then at the other side of like of the more festival scene.
Yeah, you don't become jaded towards one.
Yeah, it's just like both really have value, I think, and it's just weird because it's kind of they have very different goals sometimes,
and they function so differently within the circles.
Yeah, and I think there's slowly becoming some crossover now, where like I think some of the festivals are starting to accept a bit more online stuff and kind of weird stuff, and then
to plug David Firth again, I mean he's on Brain Feeder Films now. He just put out Cream, which was like, a 12-minute, like full-on film, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, I've not seen that yet, actually.
Oh, I would totally recommend it, man. It's just like it's like you're kind of watching it. For David Firth, it is so like almost like structured, and it makes sense. Like it's very much,
That's interesting.
It's very much followable, and it's like it does ask more. It's much more subtle. So yeah, I think, and he's on a legitimate film. I don't know what you call those, like label almost.
Oh right, yeah, no, not sure. Yeah, that sounds cool though.
But I think that got like it, put out in like select theaters that he went to in England and stuff. So
that's cool. Yeah, I think there's a few guys, like a few online guys, who they put their stuff onto festivals as well. So I think sometimes do well. I was lucky enough to go to the Annecy Film Festival. funnily enough, like with walking the dog, got in there, and like that's got to a couple now, and it's like I thought it was the weirdest thing because some of them are like, oh yes, I saw them as like, we are these great film festivals, and then they'd just be like, yeah, we'll show that thing about the guy who wants to fuck you up the ass. And so, but then like you'd sometimes find like I think like say Annecy just ended up bumping into Felix Colgrave, and it was just this weird. Yeah, it was just, we'd met each other at Pico Day before, but it was just this weird bit where we're both like, what the hell are you doing here? And it's like, oh, cool. But he's like,
but
yeah,
I think Felix has more festival oriented work almost.
He had some interesting points. Yeah, he's like a guy's worth talking to about it because he had an interesting bit where he seemed like his philosophy was like he doesn't want his films to like be tied to the medium, so they kind of, you don't want it to be kind of like, oh, once YouTube's dead in however many years, it could be a decade later. It doesn't want it to, it could stand on its own. So that means it very naturally works when you take it to a festival or put it wherever. I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it. Because then I think you find that because I kind of like that, and I also like other stuff. Like I always find it interesting. I remember, I think Yukinojo said it once, where it was like he was like I think he said he was trying to show some people he knew in real life his films, and then they just didn't get it, and he said out loud like, oh yeah, you've got to like go on the internet a lot to get my films. And it was like suddenly like realized, oh yeah, that's kind of weird, but it's like his stuff is genius in its own way, kind of thing. And it's like
there's like a whole language you have to learn before you can watch this film.
Yeah, but then like if you do that, there's just such an amazing, like, I don't know, they're hard to describe, but it's just they're brilliant as well. But like completely, it's a different thing. But yeah, so I don't know. That's the kind of thing that's just, yeah, anyway.
I think it's super interesting to find artists like that. Like, have you ever seen $1 Million Extreme?
No, not heard of that.
They're like a Tim and Eric offshoot influenced, but they had a show on Adult Swim for a little while, but really, really funny guys. When I first watched their shit, I had no idea what it was. I was like, what is the hype here? And then slowly you start to kind of like understand just the dialect of humor that's being brought to you, and like
yeah I was thinking about that recently, just that thing of like I just started watching Mindhunter on Netflix, and like I'm a massive David Fincher fan, and I put it on. I remember watching the first like 2 episodes, then talked to a friend about just saying, yeah, it's weird because like the tone really, like I wasn't expected it. It's kind of hard to know, but then it was that thing of like, I think it's that thing though, because like when you have something kind of new, it's usually it's a lot of the time it's not like, oh my god, it's amazing, because it's often just weird, because it's like, I don't know how to enjoy this yet, and then you kind of get into it and it's like, oh whoa, this is actually a really like unique way of doing this, and then
after enough time you like forget that it's weird.
Yeah
like I even find that with my own stuff. I like, it's my own shit, so I'm like, this is like the most normal. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm almost coloring inside the lines too much.
Yeah.
And then you see like what like a normal person who has no contact with the internet, they're just like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, I'm still I'm doing okay.
This is what I do, man, kind of thing.
It almost like reaffirms me. I'm like, okay, I'm still weird. Like it's okay.
Yeah. I know exactly what it means. Like sometimes it's like, am I just going too normal here? Is this too and then something fresh. Whenever someone's like, that's weird, or you're weird, I'm like, okay, good.
Thank you. I'm glad this is not for you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ask. We can cut this. Are you still good to go or what?
What time is it?
It's 30.
Yeah, I'll hang out for another 10, 15 minutes, because then we had all that problem. If that's all right, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, cool. That'll give me just enough time to get to the shop. So
yeah. So what do you want? When do you want me? Like at 40, I'll cut it out.
Yeah, that'd be good for me actually.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
All right,
cheers.
Jumping back in 3, 2. So what would you say your favorite video of yours that you produced is? Or do you have a favorite, or does it always change with the newest one?
For a long while I was pretty happy with Nerds Can Never Love, because I think for a while that kind of summed up a nice like chunk of my life really well, like without me realizing doing it. Then I was like, oh shit, and like for a long while I couldn't do better than that. Like, sometimes you have that, we have like a piece of work where you just do it, and then it's like, oh, I want to try and do something like that again. And then I like couldn't, and it made me realize, oh shit, I've got a lot to learn. Like, when I try and do it, I couldn't. So for a while it's that, but at the moment I'm quite happy with Animate Me. there's another one where it kind of feels like it sums up another part of my like I don't know. There's just something. It kind of feels a bit more like some of them. It just feels kind of like, oh, that kind of feels a bit more like my take on something.
Just like the innocent kind of just oblivious romantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I think what's funny about hearing what your favorites are, it's like it's not the ones that, you know, maybe look the best at all. It's more it's really the ones that are like, because Animate Me, in my opinion, I mean, it's also the most popular, but it's one of my favorites because it's just like it translates the best as like kind of this punch. You know, it's the funniest, and it's got nothing to do. It's got everything to do with how it's told, which is like what we were talking about before.
I'm kind of glad to hear that, yeah, because to be honest, that's one of the ones that I didn't think it would do that well. Like for a while, I wasn't going to put that one out, and because as well, I was worried it was too just, you know, like, you know, animators are actually quite a small group of people compared to the world, kind of thing like that. And I was kind of worried, like, oh, it's only going to be funny to like animators, and which I was fine with, but then I like how something in it is somehow translating to other people. Where like I think it seems to set up enough of like, oh, like, I don't know. I kind of like the fact that it is an animation. For a while, I was actually going to end that with, I considered ending that with like, you've kind of got your animation within an animation that he does. And then I was thinking of like, after that film that he's done in the movie ends, then coming out to like a live action segment, me showing Animate Me to an actual girl and her leaving as well. Just because it felt really weird of just kind of like, yeah, but that's like a cartoon version of me, and then that, but it didn't work. But I just thought
did you do like a test shoot of it?
No, I think I just thought about it, and it's like, it's a funny idea, but I think it's a weaker joke kind of thing.
Yeah. It'd be more for like the novelty of the actual live action.
Yeah. And then also kind of, it felt like it's always kind of weird when you jump out to live action after being in a cartoon world, because I always feel like you never really like the live action people as much when you've been in that cartoon world.
Yeah, like, I feel the same. Like, I don't know because I mean, Family Guy's done it, South Park has done it. I don't like, in both of those instances, I was just like not really sold on what was going on.
Right, yeah. There was I was thinking as well of like, you know, Yellow Submarine.
Yeah.
I always remember that, like, because I loved the Beatles as a kid, and I love Yellow Submarine. And then, but then at the end, when it actually has the real Beatles, I was like, I don't like these guys. Like, these aren't the guys that like I've spent like a trippy hour with. Even though it was the actual Beatles who actually wrote the songs and stuff like that. It's like, you know, you've just been on this film with everyone, with these guys, and kind of now you had a sort of weird emotional connection to them, and then now it's like, it's kind of like, it's not real.
It's the movie. Yeah, it's the movie like breaking the suspension of disbelief that you gave to this film, like, and then it just like kind of spits it in your face.
Yeah, or it's just, it's kind of like, you know, when you're in that world, it's like, that is this world, or, you know, like say South Park or whatever, where it's like, I'm just there. It's like, it's and then just being like, oh, it's really real. Yeah, I don't know.
For even in the South Park one, like when they went to live action,
I don't think I've actually seen that one.
It's well, they're like on a boat and like everybody's sick, and it feels like more fake because like, you know, you've made this animation feel real, and then it goes and you're just like, it just makes everything feel faker, you know?
Yeah.
It's the funny way of going about it, I guess. So with this next batch, are you kind of just like, I mean, is the aim long term to hopefully, you know, I mean, I think this is, you know, a lot of animators' dreams to like get off of freelance and then just only do YouTube or something?
To be honest, I'd actually want to keep doing freelance as well. Like, my dream, weirdly enough, is kind of, I feel like halfway what most other people's dreams are. I'd love half of my kind of income and time to be from online, and then half to be from freelance and other stuff. I feel it kind of keeps you sane, and also gives you other stuff. Like, there's something great about doing your own stuff, but then sometimes I feel like when you just completely left to your own devices, just you get sucked down a weird hole, or like start overthinking stuff, or start worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. There's something nice about just like freelance stuff where someone's just like, look, you got to do this. You got to do, it's got to have these things. It's got to be done by this time, and then we'll give you this much money. And it's just like, okay, I'll do that. And then you don't have to be like, okay, I got to put, you know, like
grounds you to have straightforward work.
Yeah. And it's just kind of, it gives you that kind of like discipline, and like, and it's the same kind of thing like we're saying as well, like, you know, it's nice because then it's just different stuff, you know, bouncing back and forwards. You don't always want to do the same thing. And then it kind of keeps you, then you're kind of like excited to go back to your cartoons that are yours. And then
that's almost what I liked about lifting so much. It was like art is so abstract and just a fucking pain in the ass. And then you go and do like a set regiment of what you need to do for this amount of time. And it just makes life simpler.
I think that's the thing. Yeah. I think like, it's with a lot of these creative jobs, I think it's important to find, you got to find some way of kind of like grounding yourself and having the real world there, to keep yourself sane, I think, and keep yourself like happy. Like, I've recently started doing a little bit of teaching work, teaching some at the uni that's near here. And I'm actually really enjoying it because like, it's just really different. Like animation, it's so, I'm going to spend fucking, you know, maybe months on this thing and then put it out to a bunch of people. I'll get their feedback in like a few comments and that's it. And I have to work on it for so long and but then there's something nice about, you know, if you're teaching or like when you've done like the childcare work or stuff, there's something really great about, well, I went there and then, you know, I helped them out and that's it. And kind of, I've just made someone's day better and I'm going to go home and it's done kind of thing. There's like, I don't know, it just feels like there's something really nice about that in the complete opposite way to what's nice about animation.
It's like a different kind of satisfaction.
Yeah, and just helping like a real person. It's like kind of corny, but it's like, you know, it's nice kind of doing fun stuff, but like, you know, creative stuff, it gets so kind of like wanky or like, you know, it's just kind of like letting what's in my head out there and like people enjoy it. But then it's like nice to just like, oh, I actually just did help that person out with this specific thing and they're better off for it in some way. Is just good to do in some way. But
I completely agree. I think we're just multifaceted human beings, and I think it almost takes responsibility to take a step back from the art because it's like so almost scary because you're in your head, you're like, oh, if I like step back, if I devote time to something else, like, will I lose whatever I have here? Like, will I lose this spark? Yeah,
it's kind of scary. Yeah, because I think as well, like it's hard because, you know, you worry about that taking over as well. But I feel like, I don't know, I just feel everyone's got to find their balance. Kind of whatever they do,
I think for me, the balance almost works like I kind of squirm in one way, in one direction until I find that boundary, obviously by stepping over it and doing something stupid. And then I start to recede and head back towards the other side of the boundary until the same thing happens. And it's like this almost ebb and flow of balance. And it's like
constant kind of like, I'll do that for a while, I'll do that. I'm fucking sick of this. I'm fucking sick of this. And like, then you kind of like, okay, do the other. I'm fucking sick of this. And like, your world, life is what happens between you being fucking sick of this bullshit. So.
Just it's funny, like how it's almost more dangerous to like teeter. It's more responsibility to be balanced than it is to let yourself go off on the fucking extreme.
Well, I don't know, because like for me, that's the thing. I feel like going through those, it's like its own balance kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's, what is it? Like, shit, I can't think of the way to say it. Where it's like, it's completely gone. There's like kind of like on average, you're the same kind of thing. Like if, you know, if...
if you mean like there's two extremes and you're doing both of them rather than middle of the road, it evens out to the same thing?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Where it's like...
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's like I'm a murderer this day and I'm a doctor the other day, but on average, didn't kill anyone or save anyone.
I completely agree. I think that's how people should live. I think middle of the road coasting is like, that's complacency to me, right? Like,
I think there's room for it, but I feel like for me, it's like you pick the bits you want to go for, and then like these things that like I want to really go for, so I'm going to go all or nothing. And then there are these things that I don't really care about that, you know, I'm happy to kind of middle of the road. It's not important to me. Like, I don't know, exercise, I'll kind of middle of the road. I'm not really, or I don't know, whatever like that.
I think that's almost like a maintenance thing. Like, I think there's certain things that you just have to do for maintenance. Like, I'm not passionate about brushing my teeth, but like, I'm going to do it, right? So I don't know, like, maybe I mean more almost in a sense of like, I'm going to go 100% with my art on this extreme end of it, and then for me, like 100% on like exercise, like because I like personally like really enjoy it. It's like one of my other passions, and they're like dead opposite, but they like we said, they balance me out. And I don't think I go middle of the road with either, because I think there's like a constant need for hunger in both sides. And I think that's almost what you have with your freelance versus artwork.
I think it's just, I don't know, maybe because like I know some people who like, you know, they're just drawing or animation for them. It's more of like I don't know, either it's a hobby or it's kind of like they just like more chilled stuff. Like I think there's some great stuff, but I think, yeah, for me, I think it's the same thing where I feel like for me, it's like a lot of stuff I really love. It's, you know, it's like, we're going to just try it all the way here. And I like to work that way as well. But I think there's some good stuff the other way. I don't think it's necessarily has to be complacency. But for me, when I do it to myself, I do feel that way though as well. Like if I'm kind of like, I can't really do that. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll just work a sensible amount today and a sensible amount tomorrow. And then I always feel like I'm not fucking doing anything, or like, because usually I don't really work enough when I do that. So then it's just like, yeah, I just spent a stupid 12-hour day and then just was completely exhausted the next day or whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think definitely like there's you know, different things work for different people. But so we will close up the podcast here. Thank you everybody for listening.
We are all beautiful snowflakes.
Yeah, we're available on SoundCloud and iTunes. I meant to say that in the beginning, but I completely blanked. Probably because of like everything that was going on. Yeah. Just next time, iTunes, SoundCloud, you can listen there. Go check out Ockeroid, his Twitter, his YouTube, his Patreon will all be in the description below. Whatever else you want there too. Ockeroid, anything to say to the listeners before we head out?
No.
No, I think that's the first dead-on refusal to that request.
Well, it's not a refusal. It's just I have nothing to say.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on, though. It's been a lot of fun.
Not a problem. Thank you for coming on. So check out everything, subscribe below, and yeah, goodbye.